the former assistant director of the FBI, and he joins me right now. And Jimmy, it's good to see you.
Nice to be here.
You had 27 years at the FBI. I know how important and the pride that you have for the FBI. How do you think the FBI is taking it this morning that the #2 guy, Andrew McCabe, has been fired?
I think there's a big sigh of relief and a good feeling about the fact that an FBI element, an organization in the FBI, recommended that he be fired.
Right, the Office of Professional
As opposed to them being mute and having someone else make that recommendation. So I think they're very happy about that. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I'm guessing that that's the case. And they're just gnawing at the bit to actually get involved in a real investigation, not a phony investigation like Jim Comey conducted, you know, a fraudulent investigation.
I don't understand what was driving them, Jim. Let's put this in context for a moment. You've got 10 people at the top of the FBI and the Department of Justice that have been either fired or reassigned. Obviously, this is no coincidence. Do you think somebody was directing them, or do you think they just came to the conclusion on their own, this leadership at the FBI and the Department of Justice, that they wanted to change the outcome of the election? They wanted to protect Hillary Clinton?
I think we have ample facts revealed to us during this last year and a half that high-ranking people throughout the government, not just the FBI, high-ranking people had a plot to not have Hillary Clinton, you know, indicted so that she could remain the flawed candidate that she was, which in my view was stupidity. And they also had and even this Strzok guy talked about this, they had a backup plan to basically frame Donald Trump. And that's what's been going on. This whole thing, in my view, is just total phony. I mean, how would you feel, someone out there in America land, if somebody was just had a phony scheme about you and went on for months and months and months? Yeah, and that's what's going on today.
Well, the special counsel is in place, and now you just heard Bob Goodlatte, chairman of Judiciary, wanting a second special counsel. I want to get your take on how high this goes up, because I'm wondering if Andrew McCabe just perjurized Jim Comey and what the culpability is of Jim Comey. So Andrew McCabe, in terms of pushing back on this firing, said, I was authorized to share information with the press, and that was known among many, including the director, okay? But here's what the director, Jim Comey, said back in May of last year when asked this specific question. Here is Jim Comey under oath. Listen to this.
Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
Never.
Question 2 on relatively related. Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
No.
Never and no. And yet Andrew McCabe on Saturday morning had a lengthy statement saying, I was authorized to share this information and the director knew about it. Your thoughts?
Well, I read that statement, and obviously, you know, he's puffing up his few feathers that he has left. I think virtually nothing that he said was truthful from my understanding of his role in the FBI, what kind of an investigator he was, what kind of a supervisor. You know, he was lacking in so many ways. That's my understanding. And, you know, statements like that, which were penned by CNN or somebody else, you know, they're going to just add more trouble to him.
How independent, you think, was Andrew McCabe versus Jim Comey? I mean, could he have done all of this without Jim Comey knowing?
I've wondered that myself. How much McCabe was doing that Jim Comey knew about or didn't know about. You know, to me, that's a little bit of a question.
Why? What do you mean?
Well, I just don't know. I mean, the stupidity of some of these things was so you know, rampant that it almost makes me question. Although Jim Comey is not a stupid individual, I think he's naive. He's got an ego the size of the Empire State Building, and he has a lot of other faults that got him in this trouble. But, I mean, I could be wrong. They could have been totally in lockstep. But there's no question that he and McCabe and others in the FBI and the Justice Department, and we're going to find out the State Department, and the National Security Advisor to the President, and the Deputy National Security Advisor, and John Brennan, Did you see John Brennan's remarks?
We ran
yesterday?
the tweet at the top of the show. There was real animus in that tweet against President Trump.
The animus and the malice against Trump.
There it is, right on the screen,
It's a prima facie, really, exposure of how he felt about Trump pre the election.
But he was,
and how he was my sources tell me that he was leaking almost weekly and daily, and he was taking that bunch of phony crap supposedly from Russia, and peddling that through the Congress, all his buddies in the media. He was one of the active people, and I've known him a long time.
So you think he's involved?
Oh, I think he's involved, absolutely. And I think it goes right to the top, quite frankly, Maria.
So you mean President Obama?
I think it goes right to the top, and it involves that whole strategy. They were going to win. Nobody would ever know any of this stuff. And they just unleashed the intelligence community. Look at the unmasking. So we haven't even heard anything about that yet, right?
Well, Susan
Look at the way they violated the rights of all those American citizens, right? And General Flynn, I hope General Flynn sues a lot of people, because he was handled so bad.
Well, people have gone to jail for lying to the FBI. That is a felony.
He didn't lie to the FBI.
No, I know.
Yeah, and they didn't even interview him about a crime. I mean, he was in his legal, authorized, mode when all that happened.
But it was a felony to leak his conversation with the ambassador to Russia to the press.
Well,
that was a felony.
His unmasking, we'll probably find out.
We know that from Jeff Sessions. Told us that on this program.
Yeah, there's no question. They're the people that have committed felonies, not the general, and they've ruined that guy. And because they threatened his son, they bankrupted this guy that gave his life to this country, and just the whole dealings. Look how they didn't deal with the IRS. There's so many things that they've done badly.
Well, it now feels like it's opening up and things are coming out. We will see. How close do you think Jim Comey was with Loretta Lynch? I mean, Loretta Lynch directed Comey to call it a matter, not a criminal investigation. It's exactly what he did. You can go through so many of the misdeeds. It's actually extraordinary.
Well, it is. I mean, I think he was in lockstep, and as I've said in past, there was musical chairs going on, and Loretta Lynch was the leader of the band. But this whole business is special counsel. Now, here's another thing. If you've got a moment, I would wish we didn't have to have a special counsel, but we've got the Attorney General, who is a good guy, but I mean, he just hasn't.
Well, he recused himself from everything else.
Yeah, I mean, and are we going to depend on the Deputy Attorney General to pick another special counsel? When he picked Bob Mueller, when he appointed a special counsel in violation of the enabling statute, the special counsel statute, it says you must have and set out the predicate crimes that you want investigated. And you must make the point that these are crimes that the Justice Department cannot investigate because they're conflicted. Well, he did none of that. He put the guy that's conflicted like the Jersey Turnpike from end to end.
Right. Which is why it's really important that Bob Goodlatte just told us he's going to subpoena for the other documents, because Michael Horowitz and the Inspector General does not have subpoena power. And it's important that there's a big voice now pushing for a second special counsel, an independent counsel.
And how does the Deputy Attorney General remain the Deputy Attorney General? My humble view, when he signed the last continuation of a FISA order that was replete with lies.
All right, we will leave it there. Jim Kallstrom, it's great to see you.
Nice to be here.
Thank you so much for your insights. We so appreciate it. James Kallstrom. Coming up, my exclusive interview with billionaire technology